we usually don't kind of jump right into hotbed topics on this show often, but we'd be remiss if we didn't discuss, the climate of what's going on right now in the country and in Minneapolis, Minneapolis specifically, with the tragic, senseless and needless passing of George Floyd. And obviously we're a hockey and music podcast, but we're also two adult human beings that you know even though we're white, and we have the privilege of being white and not having to be concerned about the plight of the black man in America. We can walk free and not be murdered senselessly. It's hard to talk about. It is, but it needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed. And what it comes down to is just a complete lack of humanity. In these people that essentially gave a death sentence to George Floyd, and it's terrible. And what's happening as a result of this in Minneapolis is simply collateral damage, because if an entire race of people are going to be oppressed, and their voices aren't going to be heard peacefully, sometimes peace isn't the answer. And violence and a little bit of bloodshed and a little bit of destruction has to happen. So in saying that, obviously, Mikey and I both, stand with Minneapolis. We stand with, the family and friends of George Floyd. And sadly enough, as we look towards the people that we care about and some of our mentors, and players that we love in the NHL, it's radio silence, which is a terrible thing. Off the heels of another scandal, pointing out racism in the NHL. Now, when players have an opportunity to speak up about this, there's nothing. And I think that's a terrible thing. I think the NHL and their players need to do better. I think they need to be role models. We talk about role models in these, in the sports world, and people look up to trying to be like these people, whether it's on the ice or not. But off the ice, you gotta walk the walk and talk the talk. And in staying silent, you're essentially saying that you don't care about this oppression, and it's not a good thing.
It's not. It makes me sick to be a hockey fan. I hate to say it, because all these little puppets come out every single year for the Bell Let's Talk, and they're all tweeting it and saying that they're going to raise money for mental awareness and all of that. And something goes on that makes us a little uncomfortable, and they stay radio silent instead of saying, you know what we witnessed was wrong, and we don't stand with that. And it comes literally a week after Akeem Alou's story, and it was once again radio silence from all of the stars of the NHL. And it's sickening because, my heart is also 50-50 music and hockey. And the music side of my heart has done wonders with
Yeah.
coming out and raising money to help those who are protesting. And, for example, Grayscale raised $16,000 today.
Yeah.
$16,000. And this
Hmm.
is not like Blink 182. This is Grayscale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the hockey community is radio silent. Actually, worse than radio silent, because we got Tony D'Angelo, that clown from the New York Rangers, coming out saying that he's going to drop a podcast. Like, that's what you want to tweet today? That you're going to drop a podcast?
Yeah.
And he says right here, I'm just going to read his tweet. The name of the podcast will be Watch Your Tone. Looking forward to it. We will be talking a lot of hockey, but all sports as well, and general stuff. First episode will be out within the next 2 weeks, we think. We will be taking some questions on episode 1, so start thinking. And then teammate Brendan Lemieux comes out and says, this podcast is going to push the politically correct boundary that surrounded current NHL players, and I can't wait. This is the content fans have been waiting for. This is what they tweet out today.
Yeah, it's you hate to say it like this, but it's this whitewashed mentality of, you know, if the oppression doesn't come to my doorstep, it's not worth mentioning. It's not worth talking about. And I mean, having the platform of being, a professional athlete, like this is your time. This is your time to speak out against injustice. This is your time to speak out against negativity and racism, and you're just you're not doing it. And it really kind of makes me think that, like, the systemic racism in the NHL is more deep rooted than you or I realize. I mean, you know, the fact that, non-white hockey players, not even talking about just black hockey players, but like, African Americans, Spanish, Middle Eastern. I mean, it's such a tiny percentage, and it makes you think. It's like, well, I mean, there's people out there who don't fit into the white mold, that are trying to achieve greatness in this sport, that are, trying to do great things, but we don't see them. And why is it that we don't see them? Is it because there's, quote unquote, not a large contingent, or is it because that people are getting oppressed and pushed down? It makes you wonder, how deep this goes in the NHL. And you have to wonder when the NHL is just completely aloof and not mentioning what's going on, not trying to, even if you weren't going to raise money, or do something, which you absolutely should when you're making millions of dollars playing professional sports. But, even if you just go onto Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you have tens of thousands of followers, and just say something to the effect of, like, fuck this noise, but you're not. You have a platform and you're not using it. It's scary to think of how deep this goes, and it sucks to think about it because I love hockey. It just it's mind-boggling. It's just it's hard to create thoughts about, because it's just, like, so disappointing.
Yeah, I am. I'm disappointed that, my hockey community has not been more vocal.
Yeah.
And at a time like this, when you do have a platform, that's what you need to do. You need to be
Of
vocal.
course.
And,
Yep.
you know, yes, there were a few. Brian Boyle did come out and address, how he felt about what the current state of the country is.
Mm-hmm.
I was searching today, and
Yeah.
not another NHL player coming out. And then Evander Kane was on ESPN this morning, you know, beautifully spoken, addressing how he's faced oppression his whole career in
Yeah.
in hockey,
Of course.
and he's a star of the San Jose Sharks. Was on ESPN, and the San Jose Sharks didn't retweet his tweet.
Yeah.
I just it's upsetting. It really
Yeah.
is. And
It is.
I guess I'm also very proud of our music community, and
Absolutely.
you know it just goes to show, it takes being an open-minded person to make change in this world. And
Mm-hmm.
seeing these bands come out and showing that they support the people of Minneapolis is
Yep.
it's heartwarming. And
Yeah.
I just wish that the NHL would do more. And
Yep.
you know hopefully we can see in our lifetime a change. But
Absolutely. And you know what? Hopefully, the NHL and their players and the organizations will eventually do the right thing. And then we could, have another episode where we talk about how, we spoke too soon, and the NHL really is, trying to do the right thing. And that's the only thing that we can hope. We can just hope that they see the error of their ways, and, they try to at least, even if it might be too little too late, at least, you know try to acknowledge what's going on and show some heart, and, be the role models that they're supposed to be. So
and
that's all
and,
we can
and I
hope.
just want to say, like, we talked to Bill from Tiny Moving Parts, and
Mm-hmm.
we talked about how Minnesota is its nickname is the hockey state.
Yeah.
because so many NHL players come from Minnesota.
Yeah.
And,
Yep. Yep.
I'm thinking Anders Lee and Brock Nelson. They didn't come out and say shit about their home state and what's going on.
Yep. Yep. And who knows, man? Like I said, maybe it's like I said, maybe it's just widespread racism. Maybe it's just ignorance. Maybe they're just scared to have an opinion because of the backlash that they perceive they'll get. But to me, that's all bullshit. The first thing you have to do is you have to recognize what's going on, and you have to be brave enough. And it's wild that I have to say that word, but you have to be brave enough to speak up about the injustices that are going on. And you have to acknowledge your privilege as a white male in this world, and just understand that when people say Black Lives Matter, like it's important and they have to matter. And the way our country is moving, and the dolt that we have for a president, it just doesn't seem to be trending that way. So all we can do, as people that have heads on our shoulders and can think, is just to make sure that these injustices don't go unnoticed, and that they're talked about, and they're protested, and money is raised, and things are funded. We just have to put our best foot forward and do whatever we can to try to stop this. And hopefully, the NHL will follow suit at some point, and make some moves.
Yeah.
Make some moves, man. But having said that, obviously, we appreciate you giving us the time. Obviously, we are fortunate enough to have a platform where we do get listeners here, and we hope that you listen to this, and we hope that if you have a perspective on this, you feel free to share it, but that you're doing it yourself, and you're sharing your feelings, and you're speaking out against all of the injustices. I mean, obviously not just George Floyd. I mean, that's just the what's happening today. But this has been happening. The oppression of black people for hundreds of years. Hundreds and hundreds of years. So, do your part, speak up, and be heard, and make sure that the community knows that you stand with them. I think that's the most important thing. Having said that, though, we do appreciate you sticking with us. We do have an awesome interview going on today that you're going to hear with Jesse from Misery Signals. Really super cool to get to chat with him, as Misery Signals is one of my favorite heavy bands. We talk a little bit about hockey. We talk about the kind of the how Misery Signals kind of formed from the ashes of a couple of different bands. Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, and the kind of first beginnings of Misery Signals. Obviously, Jesse left the band for quite some time and is now back with Misery Signals. They a couple of years ago did a 10-year anniversary tour for Of Malice and Magnum Heart, which is their first record. Fantastic record, and they've got a new record coming out this August that we're super super stoked for. So again, we appreciate you listening to us and hearing us out. We do, again, really strongly believe that the NHL can do better, but our music community is doing great things, and it's great for us to be able to sit here and uplift them. So without further ado, please do enjoy our interview with Jesse from Misery Signals, and we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy.